thank you for joining with me. I finally got a copy of the Week 21 study guide from the Course Companions, and in this video I will include Day 141, Section 5, The Denial of God, in Chapter 10, The Religion of the Ego, and Day 142, which is review of Chapter 10. And if you will join with me, I will go ahead and read their commentary. Now, the videos of the text are obviously separate. Excuse me, this is much more complicated than I thought. Okay. This is from Robert Perry, Course Companion Group, which is on Facebook and YouTube. I mean, not YouTube. You can Google Emily Bennington Course Companions. And this is Day 141, Section 5, The Denial of God. This has never been a favorite section of mine, but suddenly I find myself loving it. I think because it is all about God. Let me see if I can put the main ideas into some kind of logical sequence. In heaven, we decided to attack God, to leave Him. Why? Because we couldn't accept that we were the created and someone else was our creator. We couldn't stand not being the top of the chain. Rejecting God as our creator meant rejecting our very identity, our life, our joy. It meant that we felt fatherless, helpless, alone, depressed. And out of our depression, Jesus says, we made the God of depression. We saw depression and sickness as ultimate principles possessing the power of God Himself. And we looked to these principles as our gods, as the ruling forces in our lives. And that's where we are today, bowing down to these gods, performing their endless rituals of sacrifice, demonstrating our allegiance to them by being depressed and not permitting joy. Not permitting ourselves joy. All of which, of course, we turn around and blame on our brothers. In our account, we didn't throw God away. They took Him from us. To maintain this whole depressing state, we have to have shut out gods. We have had to shut God out of our minds. Our love for Him is too overpowering. The pull of Him is too irresistible. We knew that if we let it in, we would lose our religion, the ego's religion, and so we have adopted a pose of just not caring. We are like someone who is so deeply in love that she fears this love will destroy her life as she knows it. And so she acts like she couldn't care less about the man who she secretly loves with all her heart. But isn't her not caring the evidence that she really does love him? And isn't it the same with us? Our whole religion can be summed up in one brief phrase: the denial of God. Regardless of what church we may go to on Sundays, this is the real church we are sitting in every day, while occasionally sneaking out for visits to a Course in Miracles temple down the road. Every form of pain and lack and limitation and negativity are variations on the single theme of the denial of God. Leaving God was not a sin. We don't have to accept punishment for it. We simply have to replace denial of God with acknowledgement of God. God can't do this for us. It would be nice, we think, if He just made us acknowledge Him and thus got this whole thing over with. And He, in His love, does want it over with more than we know. But He won't interfere because He knows us, His Son, only as free. So we need to freely elect to acknowledge God as our God. We may imagine this involves flowery prayers and tearful praise songs. But in this section, it means something very different. It means acknowledging Him as our Creator. In other words, it means acknowledging His creations as He created them. This takes two forms in this section. First, it means accepting that we are as God created us, not as we made ourselves. Your Father created you holy without sin, holy without pain, and holy without suffering of any kind. Are we willing to acknowledge that in spite of all appearances to the contrary, this is true of us now? If we are, we will once again be incapable of suffering. Second, it means accepting our brothers as God created them. We need to look on them with peace. We need to see the little spark in them rather than blaming them for our lack of God. To acknowledge God, then, means to perceive ourselves and others only what He created. So we perceive in ourselves and others only what He created. We need to overlook the sick bodies that are limping around. We need to see beyond the sick egos that are playing their games. We need to cease being so preoccupied with the temporal. We need to instead look on only the eternal in everything we see. As this section so movingly points out, the real meaning of blasphemy is seeing anything in God's creations other than what God Himself put there. The love, 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 love. Are we ready then to acknowledge God in this way? And that is section 5 of chapter 10. And I am going to add chapter 10 review to this recording. Day 142 of the Course Companion Reading Schedule. Review of chapter 10. Section 1, Waking to the Eternal. Nothing outside my will can happen to me because nothing is outside of me. My will establishes both what happens to me and how I perceive those happenings. Yet the fact that nothing is outside of me also means that all those outer events really never really happened. I have merely chosen a sleep in which I dreamt of being apart from God, but the same will that chose this sleep can choose awakening. And so let's choose awakening instead. Bear with me, I apologize, I'm trying to get comfortable here. 2, the will to remember God. Just as I can dissociate in this life, so I have dissociated from God and my true identity. The act of dissociation being an attack has frightened me. Now I need to will to remember God. This remembering will release me from fear and bring the joy of knowing God again. I do this by giving up all attack. Since attack is not part of my reality, whenever I attack, I am actively willing to forget my reality. Section 3, the God of Sickness. I see sickness as a God with the power that only God has. I have made this God in the image of how the ego sees me. I hate this image of me. I must renounce it and renounce the God of sickness, accepting my real value and the real God in their place. This will heal me. And I must refuse to side with sickness in my brothers, recognizing that they are part of God and part of God cannot be sick. This will heal them. Section 4, no other laws but God's. The laws of the gods I made bring chaos and seem to place me in bondage. Yet only God's laws exist. What these false laws have wrought never happened. I must clear its nothingness from my mind so that reality can dawn upon my mind. Then I can help my brothers renounce their false gods. I can see the little spark in them. This will strengthen God's voice and weaken the god of sickness in their minds. And Section 5 of Chapter 10, the denial of God. In the separation, we didn't want to be merely the created, and so we denied God as our creator. This meant denying our identity and our joy and inviting sickness and depression to be our gods. We need to reverse this denial and acknowledge God. This means acknowledging Him as our creator and as the creator of our brothers. It means perceiving in ourselves and in them only what He created, only the sinless, the joyous, and the eternal. Thank you so much for joining with me in this reading of Day 141, Section 5, the Denial of God, and Day 142, Review of Chapter 10, with the Course Companion Group, by Emily Bennington and Robert Perry. I love you. Thank you.